Keisha Johnson woke early that Thursday morning with a nervous flutter in her chest. She was 8 months pregnant, her belly heavy with life, and today's checkup felt different. She smoothed the soft fabric of her maternity blouse as she glanced at her reflection in the mirror. Her skin glowed and her eyes held both excitement and worry. She took a deep breath and whispered, "It's just a checkup, baby. We'll be fine." In the reception area of Riverbend Women's Health Clinic, the carpet felt worn beneath her feet, and the muted beige walls held framed pictures of smiling families. Keisha's husband, Marcus, sat close by, adjusting his tie for the third time. He glanced at the clock on the wall, then at his phone. "They're running on time today," he murmured, though his voice trembled slightly. Marcus never missed work, and now that his wife was expecting, he carried the double weight of provider and protector. When Keisha's name was called, she rose carefully, supporting her back as she walked. The nurse's eyes flicked over her clipboard and back to Keisha's face. "Good morning, Miss Johnson. Dr. Matthews will see you now." The nurse's tone was polite but distant. Keisha managed a small smile and followed the nurse down the quiet hallway. The exam room was bright, with a large window that let in soft morning light. A poster of a smiling baby in tiny mittens decorated one wall. Keisha sat on the examination table, her hands resting gently on her belly. She felt its warmth and gentle kicks, reminders that her daughter was already strong and alive. A few moments later, Dr. Robert Matthews walked in. He was known in the community as skilled and efficient. His white coat was pristine, and his salt and pepper hair was neatly combed. But when he looked at Keisha, his eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "Good morning," he said, his voice clipped. He did not ask how she was doing. Instead, he picked up her chart and flipped through it without meeting her gaze. Keisha cleared her throat. "Good morning, doctor. I felt more tired than usual this week, and I've had some swelling in my ankles. Is that normal?" Dr. Matthews set down the chart with a soft thud. He sighed. "Swelling. It's common in pregnancy," he said, almost too quietly for her to hear. Then, leaning forward, he spoke louder, "But honestly, some patients could control that if they ate better." His eyebrows lifted, and he glanced at her with a smirk. "People who make unhealthy choices feel the effects." Keisha's heart sank. She felt her cheeks burn. She had gained a healthy amount of weight, her doctor had told her, and she ate well. She opened her mouth, wanting to correct him, but her voice caught in her throat. She focused on steadying her breathing, and her vision blurred slightly with unshed tears. Behind her, the nurse busied herself with setting out instruments. The soft clink of metal against metal sounded loud in the sudden silence. Keisha tried again. "Doctor, I've been walking every day and I follow the diet plan you gave me." Dr. Matthews turned to the nurse. "Set her up for the exam. We need to check the baby's heart rate." He ignored Keisha's words. Keisha felt the crisp paper shift beneath her as she lay back. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling resentment swell inside her. How dare he judge her, assume things about her habits, make her feel shame in a place where she should feel safe. The nurse helped her lie down and wrapped the Doppler around her belly. Keisha heard the steady thump of her baby's heart, and relief washed through her. Her daughter was fine. Dr. Matthews' words hung heavy in the room. He tapped on the ultrasound screen, barely glancing at the image, then frowned. "Baby looks fine," he announced. He pressed a finger against his temple as if trying to recall something more interesting. "And your blood pressure should be under control. Do you check it at home?" Keisha swallowed. "Yes, doctor. It's been in the normal range." She thought of the small device she used each morning, scribbling down numbers in her notebook. She knew her numbers, and they were good. Dr. Matthews scribbled in her chart without looking up. Then he sighed loudly. "Well, I suppose that's acceptable. But remember that stress can raise your blood pressure. Try to relax." His tone suggested he thought she was overreacting, melodramatic. Keisha tensed, upset that he dismissed her concerns so quickly. He stood and folded his arms. "I want you to rest, keep your feet up, and come back in 2 weeks, unless something serious happens." He cleared his throat. "That will be all." Keisha felt hollow. She sat up carefully, her head swimming with hurt. "Thank you, doctor," she whispered. She turned off the Doppler and slid from the table, gathering her things. Each movement made her ankles throb, but she forced herself to stand tall. As she walked to the door, the hallway felt longer than before. She held the door handle, hand trembling. Down the hall, Marcus appeared. He almost collided with her. "How did it go?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Keisha's voice was small. He told me I was causing my own swelling, and that I should relax. He barely listened. She blinked hard. "I feel humiliated." Marcus's jaw tightened. He gently guided her into his arms. "You did everything right," he said quietly. He offered his arm, and she leaned on him. He led her back to the reception area. The nurse gave them a sympathetic glance, but no one stopped Dr. Matthews from walking away down a different corridor. Minutes later, as they reached the exit, Marcus paused. He held Keisha's hand and spoke firmly. "I'm going back. I want to talk to him." Keisha shook her head gently. Tears glistened in her eyes. "You don't have to. Let's go home." She didn't want to cause a scene. Marcus studied her face, worry and love mixing in his gaze. "You deserve respect," he said. "I'm not letting this go." Keisha pressed her lips together. She knew how much energy and time he'd spent at work already. She was torn between protecting him from frustration and wanting him to defend her. He met her eyes and smiled reassuringly. "I'll be quick, promise." Keisha nodded, her heart pounding. She watched him stride back down the hall toward Dr. Matthews' office. As she waited at the door, each second felt like a lifetime. She rested her hand on her belly and whispered an apology to her daughter for the stress. Inside the office, Marcus squared his shoulders. He knocked softly. "Dr. Matthews, it's Ms. Johnson's husband. I need a minute." The door opened before the doctor could respond. Marcus stepped inside, Keisha's chart in hand. Dr. Matthews looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Before the doctor could speak, Marcus spoke with calm authority. "I want to know why you spoke to my wife in a way that made her feel ashamed and scared. She heard you say that her health is her own fault, that she created her own swelling, and you blamed her for being stressed. That is not medical advice, that's judgment." Dr. Matthews' eyes hardened. "I was offering advice. Stress affects blood pressure, which affects pregnancy. I lose patience with patients who don't follow simple guidelines." Marcus placed the chart gently on the desk. "My wife followed every guideline. She walks every day. She eats the way you told her to. She tracks her blood pressure. She works hard to stay healthy for our baby. You owe her an apology." Keisha peeked around the door and saw Marcus standing firm. Dr. Matthews' face flickered with discomfort. He opened his mouth and closed it. The silence grew heavy. At last, he exhaled. "I'm sorry if I made you feel that way, Ms. Johnson." His words came out stiff, lacking warmth. "I apologize." He glanced at Marcus. "Is that sufficient?" Keisha stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. "Thank you, doctor, but I need you to understand that words matter. I need a doctor who trusts me and treats me with respect." She placed a hand on her belly. "I'm doing this for my child." Dr. Matthews nodded awkwardly. "Yes, I understand." He paused. "We'll schedule your next visit now. I'll review your diet plan again." Keisha allowed herself a small, grateful smile. Marcus slid his arm around her shoulders, protective and proud. Together they turned and left the office, their unity stronger than before. As they walked back to the car, Keisha felt relief mingled with hope. In those tense minutes, her husband had stood up for her, showing how far love and respect could go even in a place where she felt least secure, and for their unborn daughter. That day would become a memory of strength, care, and the promise of better moments to come. Keisha and Marcus stepped out of the clinic into the warm afternoon light. Keisha's legs felt heavy, and every step reminded her of the day's earlier tension. She slipped an arm through Marcus's and leaned on him as they walked across the parking lot. Cars drifted slowly by, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass. Keisha closed her eyes for a moment and let the air calm her racing heart. Marcus led her to the car, opened her door, and helped her inside. She sank into the seat, drawing in a steady breath. "Thank you for speaking up," she said softly, her voice tinged with both gratitude and fatigue. "I felt small in there. You made me feel big again." Marcus reached across the seat and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "You are never small," he said firmly. "Not to me, Not to our daughter, and not to anyone who respects you. Wanted to show him that words matter. He paused. But are you okay? Keisha unfastened her seatbelt and rubbed her lower back. I'm tired, she admitted, and my back hurts more than usual. But I'm okay. She forced a small smile. I just want to go home. They drove in silence through quiet suburban streets. Marcus navigated around slow trucks and cyclists, his eyes occasionally flicking to Keisha with concern. She stared out the window at neat lawns and blooming flowers. In her mind, memories of the clinic replayed Dr. Matthews's smirk, the nurse's uneasy gaze, the silent apology. It felt like a long morning packed into minutes. At home, the front door stood open to a hallway lit by late-afternoon sun. Their two-bedroom bungalow felt safe and familiar. Keisha dragged a throw blanket from the couch and wrapped it around her shoulders. Marcus went to fetch her a glass of iced water and a small dish of sliced peaches. She cradled the glass between both hands, the cold beads of condensation cool against her warm skin. Here, Marcus said, handing her the peaches. Your favorite? Keisha smiled and ate a slice, the juicy sweetness bringing comfort. They sat together on the couch, Keisha's feet on Marcus's lap. He rubbed her ankles gently, easing the swelling. Okay. Outside, birds chirped in the trees as the sun dipped closer to the horizon. I called your sister, Marcus said after a while. She wants to come by tomorrow with lunch. She says she'll stay with you while I'm at work. Keisha nodded. That sounds nice. Her voice was quiet. She closed her eyes and let her head rest back. I keep thinking about what he said. Well, he made me feel like it was all my fault. Marcus paused his rubbing and looked at her. I know. But his words were his problem, not yours. He resumed massaging her ankles. We'll make sure no one else treats you that way. Keisha opened her eyes. What will you do? She asked. We talked to the clinic manager, but is that enough? Marcus thought a moment. I want to make sure this doesn't happen again to you or anyone else. I'll write a letter to the clinic's board. I'll document everything, what he said, who saw it, what we did. He met her gaze. And I'll ask for regular updates on any action they take. Keisha set the peach dish aside. That means extra work for you. He gave her a small, loving smile. You already give me so much work school projects. Grocery lists, meal planning, he teased. This is nothing. Shh. She laughed softly. The sound felt fragile but genuine. Okay, she agreed. Let's do that together. Over the next hour, they sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and Keisha's clinic paperwork. Keisha recalled. Each moment, she described the nurse's name badge, the exact words Dr. Matthews had used, the time on her phone when he made the remark. He asked questions to fill in details. How did you feel when he spoke? What did the nurse do? Did anyone else hear? As they worked, Keisha felt a measure of control return. She realized that telling her story with clarity was powerful. Each fact she shared was a clear boundary against mistreatment. Marcus jotted down notes and typed them into his laptop, crafting a draft letter addressed to the board of the health system. He used calm, firm language, avoided insults, and focused on the impact of the doctor's words. When they finished, Marcus printed the letter and placed it in an envelope with copies of Keisha's chart and the clinic's intake form. We'll mail this first thing in the morning, he said, and I'll follow up in 2 weeks. Keisha stretched and yawned. All this paperwork went right through my mind, too, she said. It makes me realize how much I carry already: pregnancy, work, this house. She patted her belly, and a baby on the way. Marcus set his laptop aside and stood, pulled her to her feet, and guided her to the living room rug where he helped her stretch her legs. She felt the muscles in her back loosen slightly as she bent forward and reached for her toes. He supported her gently. You deserve to rest, he said when she straightened. Let's finish the day quietly. They moved to the bedroom. Marcus drew the curtains against the fading light and turned on a soft lamp. He helped Keisha slip into her favorite stretchy nightgown. Then he brought over a pile of pillows for extra support. She settled into bed, tucking one under her knees, hugging another behind her back. Do you want to watch something? Marcus asked, flicking through channels on the TV across from the bed. Keisha shook her head. I'm too tired. But she rested her hands on her belly. Do you think our daughter felt the tension today? He paused, then sat on the edge of the bed. Babies can sense stress, yes, he said softly. But they also know love and calm. You've been a good mother today, standing up for yourself, taking care of your health, making sure she's safe. Keisha closed her eyes and let his words settle. I just want her to have a fair start in the world. Marcus leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. She will, he promised, because she has you and me to guide her. They lay quietly for a while, listening to the soft hum of the air conditioner. Later Marcus read from a novel he loved, his voice low and steady. Keisha drifted in and out of sleep, comforted by his presence. Each time she woke, she felt the steady rhythm of her daughter's movements, and she whispered encouragement to her baby. After some time, Marcus closed the book and turned off the lamp. He arranged the pillows around Keisha and smoothed her hair. Sleep well, he murmured. I'll be right here. Keisha rested her head on the pillow and felt the steady rise and fall of her ribcage. She thought of Dr. Matthews's harsh words, but those thoughts were softer now, tempered by Marcus's support. She felt safe. In the days that followed, Keisha returned to work at the nonprofit where she mentored youth. She shared the clinic incident only with close friends, and each time she told the story, she felt braver. Coworkers rallied around her, offering help with her workload and sending messages of support. Marcus kept his promise. He mailed the letter first thing Monday morning, then called the clinic administrator a week later. She assured him that the board had opened an investigation, and that Dr. Matthews was on leave. She thanked him for bringing the matter to their attention. The news spread quietly through town. At a small neighborhood gathering, people approached Keisha and congratulated her for speaking up. We need more voices like yours, one neighbor told her. A school friend posted on social media, praising her strength. Keisha felt a surge of pride each time she heard another person acknowledge what happened. She realized that standing up had ripple effects. It had given others permission to speak out, to expect respect. 6 days after the clinic visit, Keisha stood in the hallway outside labor and delivery. She gripped Marcus's hand tightly. He rested his other hand on her back, steady and warm. They were ready for the moment their daughter would arrive. As they waited, Keisha thought about the journey they had taken since that morning at the clinic of fear. The humiliation, the courage it took to reclaim her dignity. But most of all, she thought of the love that held her up, Marcus's unwavering support, her friend's encouragement, her own growing confidence. When the nurse came to wheel her into the delivery room, Keisha squeezed Marcus's hand and whispered, "Thank you for everything." He leaned close and replied, "Thank you for trusting me." Together, they faced the next chapter, knowing that no matter what lay ahead, they would face it side by side, and that in those 5 minutes of courage, they had changed everything for their family and their community. The soft glow of the overhead lights in the delivery room made Keisha's pulse quicken. She lay on the bed, arms wrapped around the handrails, breathing deeply as the nurse guided her through each contraction. Marcus stood by her side, holding her other hand and whispering words of encouragement. Keisha felt the rush of pain, but she also felt Marcus's steady presence beside her. Each breath she took was for their daughter, and each word Marcus spoke reminded her that she was not alone. As another wave of labor washed over Keisha, the room grew busier. A second nurse entered with a fresh gown and warm blankets. A doctor she had never met before checked the fetal monitor and smiled at the steady heartbeat. "You're doing great." "Keisha," he said kindly. At that moment, Keisha felt tears slip down her cheeks. They were tears of relief and of gratitude. She squeezed Marcus's hand so tightly he made a small noise of surprise, but he only smiled and squeezed back. Time passed in a blur of contractions and quiet coaching. The doctors and nurses spoke in calm, measured tones. Every instruction was simple and clear. Breathe, push, rest. Keisha followed each one as best she could. She felt the burn of effort, the ache of her back, the fierce determination in her core. With each push, she imagined her daughter's tiny head moving closer into the world. Marcus knelt on a small stool beside the bed and brushed Keisha's hair away from her face. He whispered her favorite song quietly under his breath, the tune familiar and warm. Even in her exhaustion, Keisha heard it and felt comforted. She felt Marcus's chin brush her shoulder as he leaned closer, and she whispered back, "I love you." He nodded, eyes shining, and whispered, "You're almost there." Finally, after what felt like hours, but was really only minutes, the doctor said, "One more big push, Keisha." She found a last reserve of strength, planted her feet firmly on the stirrups, and with Marcus's hand guiding her own, she pushed. With all she had, she felt a sudden release of pressure, a small, fragile body slipping into the world. The nurse caught their daughter and placed her on Keisha's chest. Oh. Soft cries filled the room, a sound Keisha would remember forever. Keisha looked down and saw their baby girl's tiny face, her eyes closed, her skin pink and soft. She felt an overwhelming rush of love and relief. Marcus leaned in and kissed Keisha's forehead before gently resting a kiss on their daughter's tiny head. "Welcome to the world," he whispered, voice full of wonder. Keisha pressed a gentle kiss to her daughter's cheek and whispered, "We've been waiting for you." The next hour passed in a dream of warm blankets, gentle coos, and happy tears. The nurses cleaned and weighed the baby, noting her healthy weight. They checked Keisha's own vitals and placed a fresh gown on her. The room was filled with a quiet joy, broken only by the soft whimpers of a new life settling into her mother's arms. Later, when Keisha and Marcus were alone with their daughter, Marcus reached for a small phone on the bedside table. He dialed the clinic manager's number with a sense of triumph. She answered, he smiled and said, "I wanted to let you know our daughter arrived safely today. We appreciate the steps you've taken since we spoke." He paused while the manager congratulated them, promising continued support and updates on the investigation. Keisha watched Marcus's expression as he spoke. It was proud and relieved. When he ended the call, he turned to her and said, "There. Moving forward. The board will meet next week to decide on the doctor's future. They're calling it a priority." Keisha nodded, feeling a sense of closure. She stroked her daughter's cheek. "Our girl is here," she said softly. "And soon, people will see that love and respect matter just as much as medicine." Over the next days in the hospital, word of Keisha's experience and the family's courage spread quietly among the staff. A young nurse, who had helped on the first day, came by to give Keisha a small bouquet of flowers. "Your story changed things," she said shyly. "I watched how you stood up, and it inspired me to speak up too." Keisha smiled and thanked her, feeling a deep connection to the woman who had cared for her. Back at home, the Johnson household was filled with visitors who wanted to meet the baby and offer congratulations. Keisha's sister arrived with homemade soup and a stack of magazines. Marcus's mother came bearing blankets and a cheerful smile. Friends brought meals and flowers. Every visit was a reminder that community could be a powerful force for good. One afternoon, as Keisha rested on the couch with her daughter in her arms, Marcus sat at the kitchen table drafting a post for his company's internal newsletter. He wrote about respect, about how a family's courage had sparked change, and about the importance of listening to patients. By the time he finished, he had drafted a plan for a company-wide awareness session on patient experience, inspired by what Keisha had endured. That evening, Marcus read a note from the hospital's chief medical officer. It thanked the family for coming forward and assured them that Dr. Matthews had been suspended and a permanent ban from the hospital was under consideration. The hospital also announced plans for staff training on unconscious bias in patient rights. Keisha read the letter aloud, her voice trembling with relief. "They're really doing it," she said. "They're really making sure this never happens again." In the weeks that followed, Keisha and Marcus settled into a new routine of late-night feedings, diaper changes, and gentle walks around the block with their daughter bundled in her car seat. They spent quiet mornings on the porch, watching birds, and sipping tea while their baby slept. Each moment felt precious and fragile, and they cherished it all. Occasionally, the memory of the clinic visit floated back into Keisha's mind. She remembered the harshness and the shame and the fear, but she also remembered the strength, her own strength, and Marcus's unwavering support. She knew that because of those 5 minutes in the clinic, changes were happening not just for her, but for other families too. To go for a walk, Keisha looked down at her daughter asleep in Marcus's arms. She reached out and brushed a stray curl from her baby's forehead. You came into this world with so much love around you, she said. That will always carry you through. Marcus smiled and nodded. And when you grow up, he said, you'll know that your parents never let anyone make you feel small. He kissed the baby gently. You'll know you always deserve respect. They stepped out into the warm air together, their family of 3 facing the future with hope. Keisha felt a deep sense of peace. The days of fear and humiliation were behind her. Ahead lay a lifetime of love and advocacy. And she knew that no matter what challenges came their way, they would face them together, side by side, heart to heart. The morning of the clinic board meeting arrived with a soft light filtering through Keisha and Marcus's bedroom window. Their daughter slept peacefully between them, swaddled in a pastel blanket. Keisha slipped out of bed without waking anyone and tip-tied her hair. She poured a glass of water and carried it to the kitchen, where Marcus was already seated at the table with his laptop open. He looked up and offered a warm smile. This is it, he said quietly, closing the screen. They'll decide today. Keisha nodded and took a slow sip of water. Her heart fluttered with nerves and hope. In the days since their daughter's birth, she had felt a mix of joy and anxiety. Joy at holding her baby, anxiety at whether the clinic would truly change. Now everything she and Marcus had worked toward came to a head. They dressed carefully. Keisha chose a soft blouse and comfortable pants clothes that felt respectful but not stiff. Marcus slipped into a crisp shirt and dark slacks. They packed a small bag with diapers, wipes, and a few bottles of milk before gently lifting their daughter into her car seat. Her tiny fingers grasped at the air as they buckled her safely in. The drive to the clinic was quiet, save for the hum of the engine and soft coos from the back seat. Keisha reached back and brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. You ready for today? She whispered. The baby gurgled and stretched as if she understood. In the clinic lobby, the air felt different from that first morning. The walls were still beige, the chairs still neatly arranged, but there was a sense of purpose here. A sign at the front desk read, Patient safety and respect. Our promise. Keisha and Marcus exchanged a glance. The promise felt real for the first time. They checked in with the receptionist, who greeted them by name and guided them to a small conference room down the hall. Inside, a round table sat under bright lights. 5 board members in business attire took their seats to doctors, the clinic administrator, a patient advocate, and a community representative. They looked up as Keisha and Marcus entered. Thank you both for coming, the administrator began. We know this has been difficult. We appreciate your courage in speaking out. We will hear your statement, review evidence, and decide on next steps. Keisha steadied her breath. Marcus held her hand. She began. 5 weeks ago, I came here for a routine checkup. Dr. Matthews made remarks about my health. He accused me of causing my own swelling because of people like me. I felt ashamed and afraid. She paused and felt Marcus squeeze her hand. She pressed on. My husband stood up for me. We reported the incident. We ask that you protect me and other patients from this kind of harm. The board members listened attentively as Marcus presented the letter he had written, the chart notes, and a transcript of the exam room audio the nurse had provided. The patient advocate nodded as she followed along. One doctor furrowed his brow at the racist language Dr. Matthews had used. When they finished, the administrator asked, Do you have any suggestions for how we can improve? Keisha exchanged a quick look with Marcus. She spoke clearly. First, require all staff doctors, nurses, and administrators to attend training on bias and respectful care. Second, establish a clear reporting system so any patient can speak up without fear. Third, hold staff accountable. When they cross the line, Marcus added, and include patient voices in policy review. Let us help you shape the process. Silence settled in the room. Then the community representative spoke. Your suggestions are thoughtful and practical. We will adopt these measures. The clinic administrator nodded. We will also place Dr. Matthews on probation if he completes the training and a formal apology to affected patients. If not, more serious action will follow. Relief washed over Keisha. She exhaled slowly and looked at Marcus, whose eyes were bright and proud. Their daughter stirred and let out a small cry. Marcus reached to unbuckle her and pressed her to his chest. Keisha touched the soft blanket and felt a surge of gratitude. After the meeting, the administrator walked Keisha and Marcus to the lobby. "Thank you again for your bravery," she said. "We are committed to making this right." Outside, the summer sun felt warm on their faces. Marcus adjusted the car seat and slid their daughter back in. Keisha rested her hand on his arm. "We did it," she said softly. They drove home, stopping at a coffee shop they loved. Keisha ordered a decaf latte with almond milk. Marcus got his usual black coffee. They sat at a quiet corner table, baby between them asleep in her carrier. Marcus stirred his coffee and smiled. "You spoke so well today," Keisha shrugged. "I was scared, but I thought of her, our daughter. I wanted her world to be better than the one I experienced." Marcus reached across and held her hand. "You made that happen." They sipped their drinks in comfortable silence. Keisha watched parents with strollers enter and leave, and she imagined each child's bright future. She felt hope bloom in her chest. That evening, at home, they unpacked a small gift basket from friends' books on parenting, organic baby shampoo, a soft toy. Each item felt like a promise of support and love around their family. Later, Marcus set up a small video call with his team at work. He shared the clinic's new policies and encouraged them to review their own workplace practices. Colleagues praised his initiative and talked about holding similar sessions in their division. Keisha sat nearby reading one of the parenting books. She felt proud of Marcus's advocacy, knowing his leadership at work carried the same spirit of respect and fairness they had championed at the clinic. As night fell, they prepared their daughter for bed. Keisha sang a lullaby, her voice soft and soothing. Marcus rocked her gently. The baby's eyelids grew heavy, and she drifted off to sleep. Keisha and Marcus exchanged tired smiles. They lay down together, their daughter resting in the bassinet beside the bed. "Today was a turning point," Keisha whispered. "Not just for the clinic, but for our family." Marcus kissed her hand. "Yes, and for every patient who will walk through those doors, they'll know they have a voice." Keisha closed her eyes, feeling safe and loved. She thought of Dr. Matthews's harsh words, how far the journey had taken her from that moment of shame to this moment of peace. With each breath, she felt gratitude for the community that rallied around her, the team that listened, and the husband who stood up for her. She felt ready for whatever came next because she knew that when people stand together, change becomes possible. As sleep claimed her, Keisha dreamed of a future where respect was the first rule of care, and where every patient, regardless of background, felt heard and valued. And in her dream, she saw her daughter growing up strong and confident, knowing from the very start that her parents would always protect her dignity and her voice. That evening, Keisha and Marcus sat together on their front porch swing, the summer air warm around them. Their daughter, little Maya, slept soundly inside, nestled against a soft blanket. Lanterns glowed softly, and the scent of honeysuckle drifted in from the garden. Keisha wrapped her arms around her growing belly and smiled at Marcus. "Can you believe how far we've come?" she asked quietly. Marcus nodded and reached out to squeeze her hand. "I remember that first morning. At the clinic," he said. "You were so brave. I saw your strength, even when you felt weak." He looked at Kesha's face in the lantern light. "In every step since then, your courage has changed so much." Keisha leaned back, letting the gentle sway lull her. She thought about the new policies at Riverbend Clinic, the bias training, the clear reporting lines, the patient advisory council they had helped form. She remembered the faces of clinic staff who had approached her afterward, thanking her for speaking up. She felt proud knowing families who walked through those doors would now feel safer. A soft chirp from inside the house told them Maya was stirring. Marcus slipped off the swing and went to carry their daughter to them. He returned with Maya in his arms, her dark eyes blinking at the porch light. Keisha reached out and cradled her mother's arms around their baby. Maya cooed, and tucked her head under Keisha's chin. "She's growing so fast," Keisha whispered, stroking Maya's cheek. "In just a few months, she'll be crawling and exploring everywhere." She laughed softly as Maya kicked her little legs. Marcus settled back on the swing beside Keisha, holding one hand and supporting Maya's head with the other. They rocked gently, enjoying the peaceful moment. After a pause, Marcus spoke again. I sent a note to the community board, he said. I suggested we host a forum on respectful care in all local clinics. People want to share their stories now. Kaisha's eyes brightened. That's wonderful. Could invite patients. Doctors, even the local health commissioner. If everyone talks openly, we can keep the momentum going. Marcus nodded. Exactly. Change doesn't stop at one clinic. It ripples outward. And you showed how one voice can start those ripples. Keisha looked down at Maya, who yawned and stretched. I want her to grow up in a world where respect is the rule, she said, where no one has to feel afraid or ashamed because of who they are. She glanced at Marcus. And I want her to know her mom and dad will always stand by her. Marcus kissed Keisha's forehead. She'll know that every day. He paused and smiled at Maya. Right, little one? Maya gurgled and waved her tiny hand as if in agreement. Keisha and Marcus laughed softly, the sound warm in the evening stillness.
Ow.
Over the next few days, they worked on the community forum. Keisha reached out to the patient advocate who had sat on the clinic board, and the advocate agreed to help moderate. Marcus called local clinics and invited staff to attend. Flyers went up at the library, the community center, and even the grocery store. Soon the date was set, a Saturday morning gathering at the town hall. When the day arrived, the hall buzzed with conversation. Chairs faced a simple stage with a banner reading Voices for Respectful Care. Keisha and Marcus sat near the front with Maya in her stroller. Parents held small toddlers on their laps, seniors leaned in to talk quietly, and medical professionals in scrubs looked on with interest. A hush fell as the patient advocate introduced the event. One by one, people stood at the podium to share. Experiences, some small, some painful, but all grounded in a desire for better treatment. A nurse spoke about seeing patients afraid to ask questions. A father told of his daughter's fear of going to the dentist after a rude hygienist. Young mother thanked Keisha and Marcus for inspiring them to speak up about bias they faced at an urgent care center. With each story, the room grew more connected, more determined. When it was Keisha's turn, she took a deep breath and lifted Maya from her stroller. Maya grasped her finger and looked out at the audience with curious eyes. Keisha nodded thanks to the advocate and spoke clearly, in the same simple, honest words she had used before. She described her own experience, the hurt she felt, and the hope that sprang from Marcus's support. She told how their daughter's birth became a turning point not just for their family, but for the whole community. Silence followed her words, and then applause filled the hall. People rose to their feet, clapping and offering smiles. Some wiped tears from their cheeks. Keisha felt her own eyes grow moist, and she smiled back, feeling the warmth of shared purpose. Later that afternoon, as the event wrapped up, a local newspaper reporter approached Keisha and Marcus. He asked to interview them for a feature story. Your experience and what you've done since could inspire other towns, he said. Keisha and Marcus agreed, and the next morning their story appeared in print and online. Local family sparks movement for respect in healthcare. Messages poured in emails, phone calls, and social media posts from people across the state. Some thanked them for giving them hope. Others offered to help organize similar events in their communities. Keisha and Marcus read each message together, hearts full. They realized that their personal struggle had touched far more lives than they ever imagined. In the weeks that followed, Riverbend Clinic finalized its new policies. Dr. Matthews, completing his probation and training, chose to resign rather than continue under the new standards. The clinic welcomed a new doctor, one known for empathy and listening skills. Staff workshops on unconscious bias became a regular part of training. The Patient Advisory Council met monthly, and Keisha joined as one of the founding members, her voice now a guiding force. At home, life settled into a joyful rhythm. Keisha returned to mentoring youth part-time, sharing not just career advice, but also the importance of self-respect and speaking up. Marcus balanced work and family, but he always made time for evening walks with Maya and her stroller. Their home filled with laughter as friends visited, and community leaders stopped by to thank them for their advocacy. One afternoon, as Keisha rocked Maya in the nursery, she thought of how much had happened since that first humiliating checkup. She remembered the fear she felt, the shame, the trembling voice. She thought of Marcus's firm words, her own steadying breath, and the support that followed. She felt a new confidence in herself, belief that her worth could never be diminished by someone else's prejudice. Keisha stood and walked to the window, looking out at the blooming garden. She saw a small group of neighbors planting flowers along the sidewalk as part of a community beautification project. Children laughed as they carried watering cans. Their happy chatter reminded her that life was made of small moments, of joy, of care, of simple acts that build something larger over time. She turned back to Marcus, who had followed her into the room. He placed a hand on her shoulder and looked at Maya sleeping peacefully in the crib. "You changed the world." "For her," he said softly. Keisha smiled and rested her head against his chest. "Oh," she whispered, "we did it together." As evening fell, they closed the nursery door and sat on the couch in the living room. A soft lullaby played from a small speaker. Marcus wrapped his arm around Keisha, and she nestled against him, her hand resting on her belly as they imagined the days to come, a life built on respect, compassion, and love. In those quiet moments, they felt fully content. The struggle they faced had led to meaningful change. Their voices had sparked a community movement, and their daughter, safe in her crib, would grow up knowing that respect was her birthright, and that courage, quiet or bold, could reshape the world around her. And so their story reached its natural close, a family bound by love and strengthened by adversity, guiding their community toward a kinder, fairer future, one simple act of standing up at a time,